Welcome to Top Tier Wrestling, your ultimate destination for all things AEW and WWE. Whether you're a hardcore wrestling fanatic or just a casual viewer, we've got you covered with the latest news, in depth show reviews, and our unfiltered opinions on everything happening in the world of professional wrestling. Join us as we dive into the high octane action, dramatic storylines, and backstage buzz of AEW and WWE. Get ready to step into the ring with us and stay on top of the wrestling world. This is Top Tier Wrestling. I'm your host, Josh the Dark Savior, with my lovely co-host, Dawn, Russian Cowboy. Let's go. Now, this week, looking into wrestling, not a terribly huge amount of headlines worth covering, so we're going to just hop right into the review of Raw, which was pretty amazing this week.
It was, yeah.
Now, going back over everything that happened, we had the debut of Joe Tessitore on commentary. He's now sitting in with Wade Barrett.
Tesseract, whatever.
Right, it is a bit of a mouthful, but Joe Tessitore.
Yeah.
So, over the course of the evening, I think Joe did really, really well considering it was first night on Raw. But there were a few spots that he missed, most particularly later on in the evening when he was calling the match with Ilya Dragunov. He completely missed Ilya Dragunov's finish, just saying like a flying shoulder or something.
Oh,
like
yeah.
That.
Yep. And, man, I'm trying to recall the name. What is the name of his finisher?
Ilya Dragunov. Yeah. It's Torpedo, the Moscow Torpedo. No, Torpedo Moscow. I think is what it's called. He's got that, and he's got the H bomb, which is that big forearm he does off the middle rope.
Yeah, he makes it look brutal.
Or sometimes he just does it standing, or really from anywhere, and he does make it look brutal. But other than that, I can't think of too many major faux pas that I recall Tessitore making, especially considering it was his first night broadcasting. So I think he did a good job.
No. He sounds good, although I will admit that for half a second, I forgot that it was him, and I thought that it was Michael Cole. They sound very similar. They both have the same type of radio announcer voice or news anchor voice. So
I could see that. It was definitely a bit different. Like, I'm used to the more conversational cadences, I think, of like how Wade and Corey and even Michael to some degree, he's a little stiffer than the rest of them.
Yeah.
But Tessitore, you can tell, like, he absolutely has like his radio voice on. And I think that's from years of his NFL work.
Yeah.
Where it's a little less conversational, more like constant broadcasting.
Yep.
But I think he did really good.
Yeah, I think so.
Now, recalling the events of Raw, we had Rhea Ripley, I think, open the show Monday Night Mommy style, cutting a promo talking about how the Terror Twins absolutely did in Mysterio and Liv Morgan at Bash in Berlin.
Yep. I am currently living for the Terror Twins. I mean, quite possibly two of my favorite wrestlers right now in WWE: Damian Priest, Rhea Ripley. And putting those two together, I feel like there's a reason to bring mixed tag team matches back to WWE, and it's definitely starting with them. And I think maybe WWE agrees because they just had that really cool match between Rhea Ripley and Damian Priest, and Dominic Mysterio, the greatest heel that ever healed in WWE.
Great.
The
I
greatest
mean,
heel.
he can't get a word out. He can't say anything.
Yeah, and Liv Morgan. But no, it's yeah,
Yeah.
Damien and Rhea. You love to see it. I've waited so long for this moment. I don't know how long it's gonna
Well,
last, but I'm here for it.
for me, I feel like taking Rhea Ripley and Damian out is probably good for Ripley and
Hmm.
Damian, but I don't think it did any favors to the
You
Judgment
mean
Day.
taking him out of Judgment
I
Day?
Yeah,
Yeah.
taking them out of Judgment Day,
Hmm.
because I feel like it took everything that was most like the coolest aspects of Judgment Day have been
I know.
removed,
I
and
hate to say it. Ew, I hate to say it.
everybody who's left is relatively
Oh
mid-card.
yeah, I know. I hate to
So
say it, but yeah, I agree. I agree. It's not like I don't like the members. I mean except for Carlito. It's not that I don't like the rest of the members of Judgment Day. Finn Balor has earned his keep, and funny enough, I didn't like him until I watched you play the story mode for WWE 2K24.
in
Yeah,
2K24,
I didn't
yeah.
like him until then. So, but now I'm like, yeah, Balor. And you know how I feel about Dominic Mysterio. You know how I feel about Liv Morgan too, but we're not gonna go there. Um, but I mean, it's not like I don't hate, because I don't hate the members of Judgment Day. JD has been earning his keep. My man, even back when he was in NXT, when they had that weird fucking creepy character that they gave him for some reason. Even back then, I thought he was a pretty good wrestler. Um, I thought his head was huge, but I thought he was a great wrestler. And now he comes to Judgment Day, and he's been earning his keep, man. He's been getting that paycheck. He's been taking everybody's finishers, multiple finishers a night. He's put in the work, but still
Yeah,
taking Damien and Rhea out of Judgment Day, just it's like taking diamonds out of a ring. You know what I mean? A nice gold ring.
it is.
It like
It is, and the gold is nice, but it ain't the star of the show,
exactly,
you know?
exactly. Like I didn't get this ring just for the gold here. Where did the diamonds go?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
I don't disagree with you. And speaking to Finn Balor, I agree. He showed a lot more personality, unfortunately, in the 2K24 game when they actually gave him some lines and kind of a story
yeah,
arc. And now pretty much all they have him doing is looking like an angry leprechaun out there. He comes out and he mean
that's
mugs,
it.
and
Yeah,
that's about it. They gave him briefly a little bit of time where he got to do when they were forming the new
yeah,
Judgment Day,
yeah.
and he was explaining
He get
why,
he got to be
you know,
menacing with his face really close to the camera. He got he got to tell everybody
yeah.
why he was mad.
And I don't think that's necessarily a bad idea. I mean, if you actually want the Judgment Day to be heels, I understand why you had to maybe pull Ripley and Damien, because they're so over.
Yeah,
Both of them are so
yeah,
over
yeah,
that, like, you're gonna end up cheering for the bad guys, which, isn't the worst thing in the world, but, like, if you actually want them to be the bad guys, it doesn't work out so
yeah.
well. Um,
I kind of
but now
sorry.
I think they need to take the time to develop what's left in the Judgment
Yeah,
Day.
yeah,
Like, they
yeah,
they really need to make them have some kind of menace to
yeah.
them.
I mean, my guy, what are they doing with Carlito? Listen, okay, Carlito has never been my favorite. All right, never. But you bring him back.
That's not cool.
Now, no, he's not. I agree. But they bring him back, right? And I, when he came back, I'm like, oh, okay. I get to watch this dude eat apples again. Sweet. Uh, which they've done so far like 2 or 3 times that I can think of. Uh, off the top of the dome. But I mean, they bring him back, and I'm not really sure for what. Like, I'm still kind of like, because I mean, honestly, think about the Judgment Day. Okay. Think about each character in the Judgment Day. You know what Finn does. He's now the leader, even though there's no leader, right? I mean, let's be honest.
Yeah,
He's now the
yeah.
leader. Or you can say Liv's the leader. So one of them is the leader, right? But Finn now, you got him, the angry leprechaun. You got JD. He is there to take everybody's finishers. He's just there. Uh, Dominic Mysterio, he's there because everybody freaking hates Dominic. Like he's the guy. He's the top heel. Okay, he just is. And then you got
He's the guy that people love to hate.
yes, yes,
It's fun for them to boo him out of the
right,
arena, even if they don't necessarily feel that strongly. It's just now the thing to
right.
do.
And then you have
Um,
Liv, who's just a diabolical little witch, right? She's just like right. So they
yeah.
all have a role. They all play a part. Now, Carlito, he comes in and he says that's not cool. And can you think of anything else?
Or that's
Or
cool.
that's cool. Right, those
Yeah.
two things. But so just imagine current Judgment Day, take Carlito out of it. What is lost?
Well, I I would rather think about, like, how could we make it a gain, right?
Right.
Because the reason you're not that up on Carlito, other than, like, being personally creeped out by the guy, is because they haven't like, he's been back for a few months now, and he wandered around the LWO, and then his storyline like, basically, they decided to separate Legado del
Mhm,
Fantasma from the
mhm,
LWO,
mhm.
and so the storyline that was going on between Rey Mysterio and, the leader of Legado del Fantasma, whose name is escaping me at the moment. Santos Escobar, there it is. But they pulled Santos out, and Legado out, and the storyline that was going on about Rey Mysterio and Santos being like, "We were supposed to be together forever, and you betrayed me. No, you betrayed me." They just passed that on to Carlito,
For
like
some
they
reason.
wiped and reinstalled like we we wouldn't notice. And then they were like, "Well, now Carlito's in the Judgment Day, so he's all over the place," which is why it's been so difficult to, like, have him find any kind of footing. And it's
And
a
I
shame
so
because Carlito, like, he used to be a skinny kid, and then he came back jacked. And
swole,
it's
right? I was like, "Oh, nice. Powerhouse now? What are we gonna see?" And we saw nothing. But that you're saying what I'm saying, but you're saying it nice. I was saying it, and it sounded kind of mean when I wasn't trying to be mean, but I was saying right now they've given him a character where he basically is just in the shadows. That's it. Like,
well,
and he
exactly,
comes out
and
and he comes out and he says he comes out and he says a phrase. He's basically Steve Urkel. He comes out and he's, did I do that?
yeah,
That's
I
something.
do
That's pretty much it.
that's cool. That's not cool. Yeah,
That's
and
it.
but he's been the point I was trying to illustrate is that they bounce it seems like WWE didn't exactly know what to do with him, right?
Yeah,
Like, it seems like the default option is if you are a luchador or a Mexican Latino wrestler, or Latina, you get default tucked into the LWO. Like, that's the
yeah,
holding pin until we can figure out something we wanna do with you. Um
yeah. Unnecessary.
and
Unnecessary.
now you've got him in the Judgment Day, and you've got this whole brand new Judgment Day. And so here's an opportunity to reinvent the Judgment Day similarly to the way you can reinvent Ripley and Priest as, faces, because they
Yeah.
can go against this new heel faction.
Mhm.
And the two things that I feel like they've wasted with Carlito is one, he's just been, as I stated, meandering in his storyline. So now you know where he's at, do something with him. And
Yeah.
the other thing is that Carlito is huge, like, relative to
Yeah.
most other Latino wrestlers. Like, I could believe Carlito could get in there just looking at his size, right? Not his completely nonchalant, kind of lazy attitude in the ring,
Yeah.
but
Yep.
just
Yep. Yep.
looking at how big this dude is. He's
Yes.
like the one member of Judgment Day who I think could go kind of toe to toe with Damian Priest because he's that big.
Right.
He's that
That's what I
physically
was
imposing.
thinking.
But
That's what I
since
was
he's
thinking.
been back, he hasn't hardly done a physically imposing anything, and I'm not sure why
No.
that's the case. Like, is
I
he
mean,
injured or is
yeah.
he a sloppy worker, so maybe we don't trust him to do these things, and if so, why aren't we working on that? But he
Yeah.
could be the muscle of the current Judgment Day because it isn't gonna be Dominic Mysterio. I mean, I
Mm-mm.
all appreciation in the world for his improvements in the ring, but Dom Mysterio is skinny and noodle armed. So he's going to be doing like the high flyer stuff.
Mhm.
This is your power guy. He's bigger than physically. I'm saying he's bigger than Finn Balor. He's bigger than JD McDonough. So he's your power guy. So use
Yeah.
him that way. Make him that guy. He's the
Honestly,
enforcer of the Judgment Day, absent Damian Priest.
honestly, I thought that's what they were going to do. When he got there, I thought that's what they were going to do. And and maybe he has an injury that we don't know about. I'm not. You know, You know what I mean.
I do, right? Like, I don't know if he has an injury or something either, and if he's had an injury, has he had it the entire time he's been there? Because everything we've
Right.
just said has been since he debuted, like, almost a year ago now, if not longer.
And
Um,
WWE has had a stint of layoffs since he's been back. And he's remained. So and again, not trying to be mean. I'm just saying there are lots of people that they've let go of, and I'm wondering why them, and what are we doing with Carlito? Like, what's happening?
yeah.
If it's an injury, then okay, I totally understand. Don't put the guy in the ring and like ruin the rest of his career.
Or
But
whoever he's in the ring with if he can't
oh,
safely do these
right,
moves.
exactly. I get it. Um, but other than that, I really don't know what's going on. Uh, it's almost like they just didn't know where to put him, right? Because they couldn't put him with Legato, and he did the exact same thing that God, Escobar did to Ray. He just did it like 2 or 3 months later, so he can't go back there.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure why they moved him to Judgment Day.
Well,
I don't know.
I don't know, but I think they were feeling like we need to have a stable, and that's
Hmm.
giving them enough credit that they just aren't popping people wherever they can fit them, which might be a little bit the case, right? Because they have a very large roster and a limited amount of television time, so they got to make it pop. Um,
True.
but taking a look at the Judgment Day now, and then I'm going to circle back to the Rhea Ripley promo to keep it, kind of with the flow of how Raw played out.
Hmm.
Um, I agree with you. Finn Balor sort of becomes the default leader, if for no other
Hmm.
reason than veteran status. Like, I mean, he
Yeah.
has the most experience of any member of Judgment Day. Like,
Yeah.
with the exception of Edge, he has the most experience of anyone who's ever been part of the Judgment Day.
Yep.
So if anything, he becomes sort of the de facto guy because he knows the most and has the most experience. And then you've got Dominic and you've got JD, who are just straight up minions at this point. Um, but I think they could do a lot with them if they allow them to. Like, JD has impressed me since he's been in the Judgment Day. I wanted to mention earlier, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I did not care for JD McDonough in the slightest when he was in NXT.
Mm.
Um,
I didn't like his character. I thought he was a good wrestler, but the character they gave him, I don't know if you remember, but he was supposed to be like this hardcore, like,
he was like,
I
I
like
thrive on
pain.
pain. Yeah,
Yeah.
it just
Yeah.
wasn't working for me. Whereas JD now is actually relatively likable, and he's been putting in that work.
Yeah.
He's been
Yeah. I
taking
mean,
some of the most
seriously.
amazing bumps, and he takes it in stride that people make fun of his, like, overly large head, so that's cool.
Yeah.
Um, and I mean, since we don't get stuck on it, then we can move past that and look at, like, how the dude actually does in the ring, and he
Yeah.
does great. I mean, he is
Yep.
his work rate is fantastic. He seems like he's obviously safe enough to be trusted with the biggest names that they have.
Yeah.
So, mad props to JD McDonough. I think the kid's in for a long future. Um,
Yeah. I
and
agree.
Dom Mysterio, just in the time since he broke away from Rey Mysterio and all this stuff he's done with the Judgment Day and built a character for himself, a character that gets mad pop from the audience in the way of booing him out of the ring. He's good. His in-ring work, just keep working on that. And I think he's also in for a nice long career. Then we've got Liv Morgan. And my feelings are mixed about Liv because and this may not have anything to do with her specifically, but in the past with her storylines, like her credibility just kept getting bombed, like,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
you beat Ronda Rousey, but when like her knee was half busted open. So every time they
Oh,
tried to
right.
put
Right.
a belt on her, it was always with like this huge asterisk, like she just can't actually cut it.
Yeah. I
And
think maybe that's where they're taking the heel turn with her right now. They put the belt on her again and then made her a heel. And I think that's on purpose.
well, I don't know. I mean, I know that it's typical for heels to have to shenanigan their way into a belt, right? But we have
Mhm.
plenty of heels that have that credibility. Like a good example in the past would be Ric Flair, right? Wouldn't mind cheating you out of the belt, but it's not like he couldn't beat you straight if he needed to.
Right.
And then we come to the more modern era, and we have guys like Gunter. Gunter is willing to use Ludwig Kaiser, but it's not like he has to. He's perfectly capable of whipping that ass all by himself.
Right.
So I don't think Liv has been given the opportunity to let us see that kind of credibility.
No, she has not.
And
Uh,
and it's a shame because she was getting there, right? Like
yeah, yeah, yeah,
even noted, like her in-ring work has improved.
yep.
And it's like,
Yeah,
let
they stopped making her, like, crawl on her knees, hands and knees, like, every 5 seconds.
right, right. Instead of like being on all fours with her butt in the air as a selling feature, it's more like, make me believe she can wrestle. And then we're getting there in her
Mhm.
feud leading up to like with the last time we saw Becky Lynch.
Yeah,
And now we're back to kind of Liv has to pull shenanigators to get and keep this belt.
yeah,
And
and also be very sexual.
I don't know. Yeah, this whole
And
storyline with Dom Mysterio, she's just been portrayed as like a stalker slut, and
like
I
a
don't.
thought. She's a thought, bro.
It's like
Yeah,
a
a
huge
she's a stalker
backpedal
thought.
from where I thought we were going with her,
Yeah.
and
I'm like, why are you making this chick a stalker thought right now? Like, because I already know that that's the talk that people, like, you know what I mean? That's like, that's a rumor about her already. And I guess they were just leaning into it. I mean, to each his own. And I'm not knocking her for being sexual in any way. Get yours. What I'm saying is she's a great wrestler and she doesn't need to do it. She really didn't need to do it. She was showing us some stuff in the ring. She was bringing it, and then suddenly now she's a stalker thought.
it's back to being 90% of what Liv is out there doing is hanging
Yeah,
on Dom and like licking people's faces, and it's like
yeah,
I
like come
agree with
on.
you that sexuality can be a part of this scenario, but
Yeah, look at Rhea. Jesus.
I don't know if well, Rhea is. I'm not gonna say she doesn't bring sexuality into the ring. I mean, just take a look at how she pins her opponents,
Yeah,
and but it's not all there is, right? Rhea is established as a absolute beast in the ring, and the
yeah,
point I'm trying to make is like we were working our way on building Liv's credibility as an in-ring performer, but then that got stalled out like with this whole turn of events, and
yeah,
it's like I still would like to see them develop her as a credible, believable, like so that she could possibly be believed as winning a championship belt without necessarily, needing to resort to shenanigans.
yeah.
Because I think that goes a long way. I mean, look at and I don't want to go too far off, but look at MJF, right? MJF will do anything to win a match. Like he'll pull out the dynamite diamond ring, he'll hit you with everything in the arena. But he's
Mhm,
also a good enough wrestler who has put on banger enough matches that we all believe
mhm,
his credibility in that ring. We know he can
mhm.
go. So
Yeah,
when he does those things, it does seem more heelish because it's like you didn't need to do that. Whereas Liv, you only won because of that. Like you otherwise don't have the credibility to stand in that ring. Like
yeah,
anybody could beat, Rhea Ripley if we hit her with enough chairs,
yeah,
even that guy in the audience, so I really do think it would help to establish that Liv Morgan is a stronger competitor in ring than they have done. And they were on their way and then they kind of went back to this.
yeah. I
So
agree.
I think those are my general feelings about this new Judgment Day. And I think they need to work on if they're going to be players in this for a while. And it's not just something that, now that Damien and Rhea are out of it, it's just going to linger until it breaks apart, but they're actually going to keep doing a thing with it, then they need to build the credibility of the wrestlers in there.
Yeah,
And I know people would say, well, Finn Balor doesn't need any more credibility. Well, maybe he doesn't, but he could use some more character building because Finn Balor has always been a great in ring worker, but
mhm,
he's stiff as a board to look at as far as a character. He's got that same dilemma that seemingly AJ Styles does, is that both of them are fantastic in ring workers, but they're boring as watching paint dry as far as a personality.
yeah,
I mean, should I blunt that and mince my words? I'm just speaking the truth
no,
here.
no.
I would love to love both of them more, and I'm trying to give advice on what I think they need to do, which is
Yeah,
to make a more over the top character that people can really latch on to. Um, so those are my general thoughts, but specifically with regards to Rhea Ripley's promo, we had Dom come out with like a black eye and a popped blood vessel, which was just kind of gruesome to look at. He's all
mhm.
like, "Look at my bloody eye," and and that was a pretty good promo. I think we all kind of figured, Liv Morgan was going to try and get the sneak on Ripley, and it just didn't work
Yeah,
out for her.
for sure. Yep.
But
Again, I don't know why they're doing that. Whatever. But yeah, she did not make the cut there, and Rhea denied her that action.
yep, until she was knocked out of Ripley was knocked out of the ring and hung out to dry, and
Yeah,
supposedly injured her knee. So all in all, I think that promo at the beginning of Raw was pretty interesting, and it led to some interesting events later in the show.
I know.
Moving on past that intro for now, our
Mhm,
first match of the night was, and you mentioned it before, 6-man mixed tag matches. Like you mentioned, the WWE leaning back into mixed tag matches. I think
mhm.
mixed tag is on the rise, like across the board. Like AEW and WWE are leaning into some more mixed tag matches. It's like they both remembered, hey, here's something we haven't done in a while,
Yeah,
and
and I'm here for it.
yeah, exactly. That's not a complaint, because it is something that they had not been doing for a while, and now we've got
Yeah.
some interesting mixed tags. And I mean, I think there's room for. And I know people will disagree. They'll be like, "Oh God, not more belts." But I think there's room in both AEW and WWE for some sort of mixed tag belts,
Yes. Oh,
and
WWE
WWE.
just yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say WWE also could benefit from something like a trios belt, especially in the
Yeah.
women's division, which is sorely lacking in belts. Like, they could
Yeah.
use a few more. Like, they don't currently have any mid-card titles. Like, the men have the Intercontinental and the US championships as mid-card titles that are usually launching pads to the bigger heavyweight belts.
Mhm.
Women don't really have anything like that, and they don't have 2 sets of tag belts. They're just missing a lot, and I don't know if that's a TV time issue, but I don't know if I don't know which one would be the chicken or the egg in that one. Like, if you give them more TV time, then is it worth giving them the belts? Or if you put out these new belts, will that make it more intriguing to earn more TV time? Or do they just
Mm.
need more TV time altogether? Because I do think with both of these companies, WWE and AEW, they have these massive rosters filled with talent, and the constant struggle is, amongst other things, putting everybody on TV when you only have X number of hours in a week that
Yeah.
can showcase anyone. So you got to pick who gets time for what. And a regrettable truth is that the women still, while they're draws and they're getting way better, they're still not the top draws, with a couple of exceptions. So I imagine they have to weigh that in, and it's like, well, how do you get more? How do you give them the opportunity to be bigger draws? Well, maybe some belts, some stakes, maybe a little
Yeah.
bit more development. Um, but that's a whole separate, yeah, that's a whole
Yep.
separate conversation right there.
Yep. Whole nother podcast.
Yeah. But we have American Made versus the Alpha Academy in a
Mhm.
6-man mixed tag match. And we pretty much had it basically went down kind of the way we thought it would. Um
Mhm.
Now I was impressed by the performances of Tozawa and Maxine Dupree.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
Otis constantly, I think, overperforms in the ring relative to where he is on the card. I mean,
Yeah.
that dude is crazy. He is ridiculous strong.
Yeah, I feel
Um,
like they're holding Otis back. Um, That's my personal opinion because you're right. He is super strong. That like ridiculously strong. Um,
Yeah.
and I mean, I think he could handle most of the time two dudes by himself if they gave him the opportunity. Um,
Sure.
Tozawa, Tozawa's been repping. He's been repping for Alpha Academy. At first, at first, I thought that it would be um kind of a ridiculous venture to put Alpha Academy against American Made, but it's been looking good, surprisingly good. I can say that I was very nervous when when they pitted Ivy against Maxine or Maxine against Ivy. Because come on, it's
Yeah,
Ivy,
Ivy Nile is insane. Like
right?
her physique, she's very. I mean, I know she's like 2 feet tall, but she is built like incredibly well. So I see where you're coming from, where it's like this is a mismatch. Like
Yeah, and
Maxine.
Maxine is very, very amateur, but Maxine has been repping.
Yep. And I agree overall with where you're coming from because I thought like, okay, American Made versus Alpha Academy, you've got the Creeds who are outstanding in-ring performers. Both of them very strong men, very, very athletic, just ridiculous. And you've got
Yeah,
Ivy Nile who is in phenomenal shape and looks like she could bench press like Otis.
yeah,
Um, and then you've got the Alpha Academy, which like while Otis is physically imposing, like he is menacingly strong.
mm,
You've got Tozawa who, maybe can be good, but they rarely let him be. So in general, I thought it was just gonna be like American Made having their way with Alpha Academy for the most part.
right.
With only
Yep.
really Otis sometimes giving them some grief. But
Yeah,
I was pleasantly surprised, and I think this is where you were heading with how Tozawa and Maxine like came up
yeah,
instead of just being squashed. Um,
yeah.
and
That, yeah.
Maxine really brought it in a way that I was surprised to see. Like I think if they keep developing her, she could really be good. And Tozawa was allowed to do some really good high flyer stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
he actually had a power move where he was tagged into the ring and got behind one of the Creed brothers. I can't remember if it was Julius or um Brutus, but just ran up to him and German suplexed him. And I'm like,
Yeah, I think it was
what?
Julius.
Tozawa in here with the power move.
Yeah. No, I mean, they've been looking really, really good. So, um, I am extremely impressed. It does also help that the American Made have the White Six to contend with as well.
Yes, it does.
The White Six heat is real.
But I think they did really well in that match by making it look like shenanigans almost had to occur for American Made to defeat even the Alpha Academy because the Alpha Academy was bringing it.
Yeah.
And then uh, I forget exactly how the distraction went down, but something threw Maxine off of her game, and that allowed Ivy Nile to sneak in behind her and snag her with the her very unique dragon sleeper. That I mean that's a move that looks like you can bend your head all the way backwards. I mean
It looks
that looks like it could be
unfortunate.
that. I mean, not all wrestling submissions look like they have a chance of paralyzing someone, but dragon sleepers kind of do.
Yeah.
And so, that was actually a very good match, a much better match than I thought it would be. I thought it was just gonna be a squash, and it was
Yeah.
actually a little bit more than that, and I was pleasantly surprised.
Yeah. I gotta give Maxine props for being able to do the dragon sleeper move. Because I mean, it relies heavily on how far she can bend herself back as well.
Yeah.
Props.
Yep. No, real talk. Um, because I mean that and like the reverse DDT that was known as the Scorpion Death Drop are two
Hmm.
moves where if your timing is off or your opponent's not that flexible, you could really seriously injure someone's neck. So
Yeah.
mad props. Um, but then after the match, we had Gable and American Made calling out the Wyatt Six because he's insane.
Yep. Hey, that's fine. Call him out. Let's get some more White Six in our lives, please.
Right. For us as fans, it's great. But I'm sitting here thinking, Gable, why do you not want to live anymore? What is
You
wrong with
tired of
you?
life, my guy?
Are you done with this world?
It's a Gable, no.
Right?
Gables.
This American Made only just got made, and now you're trying to unmake them. Why are you doing this? And I'm still not sure who all is gonna be in that match. I know Uncle Howdy came out and gave that promo, that was akin to
Mhm,
saying, "My life is no longer mine, so if you choose the path of your own undoing, who am I to stop you?" Something along those lines. I'm paraphrasing
mhm,
heavily.
mhm.
But is he in that match? Because it looks like they're setting up for a mixed tag match there, but
Yeah,
that would leave American Made like a man down because there's 4 men and a woman in the Wyatt
yeah.
6. There's 5 members of the Wyatt 6. Let that not confuse you a little bit. I'm guessing that the 6th
6
member
member
might
is
be
Wyatt.
Colin brother, Bray
Yeah.
Wyatt. Um, so who is American Made gonna get to step in, or is, like, Uncle Howdy
Uncle
sitting
Howdy.
that one out and just letting the other members of the
I
Wyatt
th
6?
I think I'm not sure, but I think that Uncle Howdy is not going to be in this match, and it's just gonna be the rest of the group. Unless they pop off with something, where Alpha Academy, somebody from Alpha Academy joins the White Six to help. Uh, no, I'm sorry, not the White Six, but somebody in Alpha Academy helps uh Chad Gable, and why would they?
With the
So
American Made? Yeah, he sorta
right,
alienated everybody.
right. So I don't. I mean, I just don't see how Uncle Howdy would be in it, and I don't see anybody else helping them. Like helping American Made. So, but what do I know? Maybe maybe somebody will join in, but I don't think so. They're kind of ostracized at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, they made a big deal about how hard it was for Gable to find anyone to help him when the Wyatt Six were targeting him, and he's finally put
Right.
together American Made. So, like now, if out of the woodwork suddenly there was a whole bunch of people that are like, "Yeah, we'll help you," it would be weird, especially
That'd be
facing
weird.
against the
Yeah.
Wyatt Six, who theoretically no one in the back wants any heat with. Like,
No, nobody wants that smoke.
no,
That is
well,
smoke.
not even the Street Profits, and they always
No,
want the
yeah.
smoke.
They've said shit. They ain't got. They put their shit out. They was like, stop, bury it.
Yep.
Nobody
No.
wants it.
Yeah, even Jay Uso like said, "You can have the Fireflies back.
Yep.
I ain't want no smoke."
My man did a yeetin' run. You remember? Yeet
Yeet,
and
bye.
left her.
Yeah.
Like I'm out, holla.
So I'm curious to see how that mixed tag is going to go and who all the participants end up being.
Yeah.
But my current thought is that it's going to be Uncle Howdy on the side and just the other members of the Wyatt Six.
Strangely
Um,
enough, I am more excited. I know. I love the White Six. I love where we're going with that. But I am the most excited to see Nikki in the ring again. I loved her when she was just crazy Nikki. She's a very strong wrestler. She's a little powerhouse. A little negative rage. She reminds me of Abaddon a lot. So I would like to see her, just like I'd like to see Abaddon, in the ring.
yeah, fully agree. It would be nice to see her do some in ring, but we'll find out. Moving on to that, from that, sorry, we have Zelina Vega versus Shayna Baszler as the next match on the card.
Mm.
And I'm wondering, like, I get that Zelina Vega is all spunky and whatnot, but it's like you're the only female member of the LWO versus Shayna Baszler and the entire, what is it? Pure Fusion Collective.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, I don't know why this would be a great idea for you.
You know, Gosh, where does one begin with Pure Fusion Collective? You know how I
Well,
feel about Sonya.
mhm.
You know how I feel about Shayna. You know how I feel about oh my god, my brain. The woman whose name I can't remember all of a sudden.
Shayna, Sonya, and Zoe Stark.
Zoe, thank you. I think
Mhm.
they're all great. But I think before I get on that, you're about to say something about the match specifically, right?
Well, initially, I'm sitting there thinking, all right, Shayna messed up your arm, and I get that you have, an issue with that. That all makes sense. But coming out here by yourself when you know Shayna is going to bring her entire stable,
Yeah.
I mean, and I guess that's just a wrestling thing, because we said that so much about the bloodline. Like, it's like, why are the faces not smart enough to realize that if you go against the bloodline, if you go against Roman Reigns at the time, and now if you were to go against Solo Sikoa, why do you think you're going to come out there by yourself that they're going to not bring their entire stable to bear? Like, go find a whole bunch of
Seriously.
friends and bring them. So, like, why not bring at least some of the members of the LWO? I know they can't, like, because of the way WWE is, I know they can't physically do anything to the women, but couldn't they at least be out there watching your back or at least kind of bodily, impeding the path of the other women attacking you?
Well,
Um,
I mean, she's been doing things with oh my god, the two dancing girls. Kayla?
oh, Caden,
Kaden!
what is it? Caden Carter and Katana Chance.
Yes, she's
Yeah.
been doing stuff
We
with
need a
them. She's
tag
been doing
team
stuff.
name because it's just always a mouthful. Like it's because it's so much alliteration. Caden Carter, Katana Chance. And it's like couldn't you like come up you know, Shayna and Sonya and Zoe immediately have pure fusion collective, which is also a mouthful, but we
Yeah.
can get that down to PFC if we need to.
It
Um,
sounds like a funk band.
whereas there's just not a quick way to get through, you know, Katana Chance and Caden Carter.
Yeah.
So I mean, it just doesn't roll off the tongue, is what I'm saying. Um, but yes, yeah, she had been doing something with them. I'm not sure where they are, but if you remember in that match when inevitably Baszler gets the pin, PFC all jumps Vega. At least Lyra Valkyria raced out there to kind of help out, and that sets us up for a tag match next week. Um, but I'm with you. Like, where are Carter and Katana, or Carter and Chance? I guess would be more appropriate.
Yeah. I just figured it would like help.
Yeah. So we shall see where it goes. And I think you started to hit on like your feelings about Pure Fusion Collective. And you asked where would we start with them? I would start with like here's three women that have, in my opinion, a ton of potential. I mean, Shayna, when she first debuted back in the day, is a very different Shayna than you have now. Like Shayna Baszler was the same woman that won so like dominantly in I think it was Hell in the Cell with the other women that there was like long stretches where she had beaten an opponent long before the next opponent showed up. So she's just chilling in the ring. And
Yeah.
now she can barely beat anyone, and it,
Yeah.
it, it makes me sad because these are three very, very dominant women that have. I mean, Zoe Stark is a brick shit house, like, and she is very good in the ring. She still needs probably some work with her cutting of a promo and anytime they give her the mic. And Sonya is okay in the ring, but she's very good as a character and she's good at cutting promos. So
Yeah.
there's all the potential in the world for these three to be an absolute force on the women's roster. And I'm hoping they're getting them there, but they're not there. And
They're not there yet. No.
I'd like to see them get there though.
I think about Shayna. I think about 2017, 2015, 2016, 2017 Shayna Baszler. And I am confused by what we are given in 2024.
Yeah,
I'm just
totally agree.
confused by it. Like it's almost like she's checked out in the ring. Again, I don't know these wrestlers. Uh, like I don't know their backstories that deep. I don't know about their personal life. I know that Shayna spends a lot of time on her phone, and it's like mentally she's still on her phone when she's in the ring. Like, like seriously. And yeah, I love Shayna Baszler. You know I do. That's why this is very upsetting for me. You know how I feel about Sonya. I love me some Sonya. I thought her and Chelsea, I thought they ended up becoming a pretty solid, good looking tag team. So it was unfortunate that she got her injury when she did, and that she had to sit out for quite a long time. And I've seen her in the ring so far, and she looks rusty to me. Um, but it's like riding a bike; she'll get it back. It's just, man, it's like right now, Pure Fusion Collective is really hard. It's a really hard thing to watch, and the women they have them up against, it's really hard to watch somebody like Shayna Baszler job to somebody that's the size of her thigh. It's hard for me to see her do that.
Yeah,
Shayna should be
yeah,
going up against people like Rhea Ripley. She should be going up against people like Nia Jax. Like she should be going up against powerhouse female wrestlers like that are like dominant in the ring, because that's her. Instead, they have her
yeah.
kowtowing and jobbing to look. I love Zelina. She's adorable. She's, I love her little spunk. Good for her. But come on. Come on. And then you take three of your most dominant female wrestlers in the past. Like Zoe hasn't even gotten a chance yet, but she was looking fucking real good in NXT. She was alpha dog dominant there, which is why she ended up in fucking WWE. So it's sad to see somebody like Sonya, who again 2017 Sonya, amazing. 2017, 2015 to 2017, Shayna Baszler, amazing. It's hard to see these women now doing, God, quote unquote mid card. It's, to me, the matches aren't even mid card, man. They're so checked out, um, and so just
And
half assed. It just, I don't know. It's sad to see, is all I can say.
well, and I don't want to extend that to necessarily
Yeah,
everybody. Lena Vega looks like she's appreciative for every moment
yeah,
that she's given to be
true,
on
true.
television. And she always brings it the best she can, considering that she's like 1 inch tall and a
She does
millimeter
bring it.
around. That said, I agree with you that there is definitely an appearance of checked out. Not, I don't see that with Zoe, but I do see it in Baszler and maybe to a little bit of an extent in Sonya. Although I think Sonya's might just be
Yes,
nerves. I agree
yes,
with you. Probably still got ring rust, so she's really internalizing like everything she's
yeah,
trying to do, so she doesn't mess anything up. She hasn't gotten back to where, it's second nature for her to get into that ring yet, because she's been away for
yep,
so long. And I agree with you, that'll come back to her. But yeah, Baszler seems a little bit checked out of
yeah,
every match. Like I don't know if she's just disenchanted, but it's coming through in her
yeah. I
performances.
I agree. It
And
hurt. It
so
hurts the heart, man, because she's one of my favorites. She's one of my favorites in WWE.
Beast it
Yeah.
better be.
Again,
Yeah. No, I
she should
agree.
be having matches against Rhea Ripley, and they did it once, you know, and it was
Yeah.
okay, good.
She used to torment Ripley in NXT. Like she was one of her major like
Exactly,
arch
exactly.
enemies.
Like that's
Yeah.
so.
And with her being a submission wrestler, there's no like she's a believable
Yeah.
submission wrestler. So there shouldn't be any this opponent too big. Like we should believe that Baszler could get Jade Cargill, the like most ripped giant
Uh huh.
woman out there, or Bianca Belair to
Yep.
tap, because hers is the leverage game. She's not necessarily bringing a power game. I'm not saying she doesn't have any
Mhm.
power game, but when you're outpowered by such massive opponents, then you go to your leverage game. And I mean, if the UFC ever taught us anything about that, or wrestling in its history, is that it doesn't matter how big the opponent is. If you get them in the proper submission hold, they're going to tap or go to sleep. I mean, we just watched Gunter do that. Spoiler warning for anyone who hasn't yet seen Bash in Berlin, but spoiler warning, Gunter chokes out Randy Orton, right? And Randy Orton has gotten massive. Randy Orton looks like he could accidentally bench press Gunter by inhaling at this
Yeah.
point. Um, I mean, he went out and got like Drew McIntyre
Mhm.
swole, where wrestler in ring might be larger than they
Yeah.
appear. Um, So we could totally believe Shayna Baszler to be able to take on anyone in the women's division, like literally anyone, because she's always got the leverage
Mhm.
game of her submissions. She's the submission magician. So I don't know why they don't utilize her like
Don't
that
know.
more. I just don't have a clue. It's like, are you pushing Pure Fusion Collective or not? Are you pushing Baszler? Because she came in as a beast. She was extremely dominant, and now she's been more or less a glorified jobber for a long, long time. And it's like she got like all of the clout that Ronda Rousey had to give when she left, and effectively that made Shayna Baszler the baddest woman in the WWE, or the baddest woman on the planet. And it's like they did nothing with that.
Nope.
Um, so I really have no idea what trajectory Baszler is on, and I don't know if that's booking or WWE's designs for what they want to do with her, or if it's because Baszler's just like, I'm just here for the check at this point. Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know. But I agree with you that you can absolutely see some kind of like level of checked out or disenchantment. Like she just doesn't seem excited to be there
Yeah.
anymore. And it's a shame. She could absolutely be a beast.
Yeah.
Um, Moving on from PFC, Lyra Valkyria and Zelina Vega, we then had the CM Punk promo, and as predicted, he is going straight after Gunter.
Mhm.
Like not long before CM Punk has his eyes on that heavyweight title, like he just thinks that because he exists, he deserves to be in a title picture. But it didn't go so well for old CM Punk, because Drew McIntyre ended up beating the ever loving hell out of him. Uh, broke his little bracelet and fed him the beads,
Yeah.
and like hit him like so many claymores. It was a
I
claymore
was
party.
like I was like, okay, so you're mad at him, you come back and you kick his ass. I get that, Drew. But the fact that he was like, I want the bracelet. I
Right?
was like, my
Like
guy.
like he was looking at that bracelet,
I
like
was
I
like,
was
you
like,
can go to
do
Michael's.
you and that bracelet need a
I was like, you
room?
can go to Michael's, right, and get all the beads and just fucking make you one. Like,
Right? It's like a 50
like
cent bracelet. You
I'll
can
mail you. I'll mail you a bracelet, my guy. Yeah. The same thing with CM Punk. Like, yeah, my bracelet, my child. Yeah, I'm sorry, his child dog or whatever. I don't know why he had the same accent that Drew had. My
right?
bracelet.
And I mean, it's just it's like it's so precious. It's a bracelet with the name of my dog and Larry on it.
It's like your
It's
dog.
like
You heard what you just said. Oh, you ain't right.
sorry, AJ. I had to. I had to take a shot at Punk.
Oh,
In, in case anyone is at all curious, I'm not a CM Punk fan.
yeah. I tell you what. You know what? I'm gonna be a sellout. I love CM Punk. I don't know this guy.
What the
This
hell?
guy.
What is happening right
This
now?
guy here hating
Who are
CM
you?
Punk. That's ridiculous. I think he's fantastic. The greatest of all time. Great.
Don't lie to people. Quit lying.
Greatest. The greatest that ever lived. Greatest to do it. Anyway. Uh.
Jesus, did you take a tour through CM Punk's
uh
own mind? Because that's what he apparently
oh
believes.
man. Anyway. Yeah. No, he got his ass beat. Drew had a few things to say with his legs and his feet. Um. and then he took the bracelet and he just he broke it, and then he was like, "Here, you eat this." And CM Punk
and wash it down with a
CM
claymore.
Punk was like, "Nom, nom, nom, nom," and then he died.
And then he died. And then on his way to the morgue, uh, Drew McIntyre decides to obliterate him before he gets into the ambulance, and we got CM Punk like twitching and spitting up blood on the
Yeah,
outro.
I was like, man.
So I will say this: Drew McIntyre has definitely gotten the better of CM Punk in terms of like kicking the crap out of somebody on the
Yeah,
outro. Like like in a couple of weeks back in their feud, like Drew McIntyre carried CM Punk through a garage door and then just dead dropped him off his shoulders
oh God, yeah,
onto the
yeah,
entrance ramp. And I was like, "Jeez Louise." So every time Drew ends up kicking the crap out of CM Punk, it's way worse than any time CM Punk has ever kind of done the same to Drew,
yeah.
in
And
my
I'm not
opinion. Like,
sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, McIntyre's looks like the outcome of a street level mugging, whereas CM Punk's is more typical, like, oh, he got jumped backstage at the
Yeah.
wrestling show.
Nah, and I'm like, is this what we're gonna do? So CM Punk comes back, gets injured, he's gone. He comes back, and then Drew injures him, quote unquote injures him, and he's gone for a little bit longer. Probably to finish from recovering from the first actual injury that he did in fact have. But Drew beats him up, and then he goes away. And then he comes back, and then they have a match, and Drew wins, and then they have another match, and then CM Punk wins, and then he comes out and celebrates, and Drew beats the stuffing out, like beats the brakes off this dude. Is he gonna be gone again? Like, is this like another vacay? Like, I just got my ass kicked. Got to spend some time off the TV again, or is he gonna be back?
Right,
Because I mean, like,
yeah.
if you're gonna keep doing that, that's what are we doing?
I remember, like, when we were looking at it, you said the same thing. It's like, "Oh, is this how it's gonna be?" Like, he comes back and puts on a minimum amount of
Right?
performance and then is immediately injured, quote, unquote, "injured." And I hope that's not the case. I mean, even as someone who isn't a fan of CM Punk, his return to WWE is, like, really kind of his last chance to make it
Yeah.
better. And it's I don't think anyone, not even, and certainly not people that are CM Punk fans, and people who are not his fans are going to be like, "Oh, of course." So it's like, please, let this be like
Yeah.
kayfabe,
Yeah.
because like
Yeah.
I can't. How are you going to put a belt on him? And
Oh
AEW
boy.
definitely tried. How are you going to stick a belt on CM Punk if every time you attempt to, he ends up
Right.
injured?
I'm hoping that's not
So
the case.
he's going to need to be healthy to have a
You
shot
know what? I
here.
can't say this again. And I'm joking about being a fan of CM Punk. I'm not. I'm not. I don't hate him. I don't hate him, but I'm not a huge fan. I can say, however, that coming to WWE and getting in the ring, I haven't had any complaints with his performance. He's come into the ring and he's
No.
done a bang up job. He's done real good.
Well,
What?
I'm just gonna say my complaints are related to performance. It's
Really?
it's less about like is Phil. Well, remember that promo he cut where he's like, and the little cancer boy flew 8,000
Okay.
miles,
Yeah.
whatever. It's like, come on, you
Okay,
barf.
well, that's like
Oh, CM Punk
okay,
cures
but hang
cancer
on.
now. Vomit this
Hang
way
on,
bad.
don't. I can't believe you're making me defend CM Punk. All right, here, look.
Don't
Then
don't
no,
then. There's
because there
nothing.
is, there is. That's not his in-ring work, okay? Like that's a promo that he cut, and yes, and
Oh, okay.
it's like the
Well,
promo that he cut. Yes, he does talk a lot about how he's out here curing cancer and raising the dead. Okay, for
yeah, come
listeners, I
on.
know that he's not saying that he's curing cancer and raising the dead. Don't angry write me shit. Settle down, calm down, smoke a joint.
He's totally saying I cured cancer. That little boy wasn't gonna make
It's
it
a-
until he met
it's
CM
like
Punk, and suddenly he
let's
pulled
see him Punk's
through.
like you see that kid over there? He was in a wheelchair 2 minutes
I'm
ago.
waiting for CM Punk. I'm waiting for him to come out and talk about how he attended a convention in Chicago and a woman in a wheelchair rolled up to
Just
him and she's been
stop.
paralyzed for the
You
last
can't
25
take
years, but she managed to stand up in order to catch that hug from CM Punk, and then she walked out of the building afterwards. I mean, it's almost at that level if it isn't there already. That's how bad that
Well,
promo was.
I mean, that's what it's like when you're holy. So, I don't know what to I don't know what to tell you. You will never know what it's like to fly high like an eagle.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
the CM is short for Christ manifested. Christ manifested Punk. I should have known. See, so that's why Drew McIntyre can't get rid of CM Punk because he
There
prayed for this.
boom! There it is. It comes full circle.
Full circle. Now it all makes sense. And the bracelet is a symbol of that circle. So when Drew broke it, does
Oh.
that mean their feud is coming
Oh.
to an end?
Wow. Man, you just made this shit deep. Yeah.
Did I? Did I really? Well, I'm sure CM Punk will take credit for that.
Yeah.
So, all props to
They
CM
send you a
Punk for that
cease and
one.
desist written on a halo.
But at any rate, well, after the beating McIntyre gave Punk, he's going to need at least 3 days to rise from the dead. So moving on from that was the most satisfying part for me was Drew McIntyre kicking the ever loving hell out of CM Punk.
God.
But moving on from that, you have the next match of the night, which was Dominic Mysterio, Dragon Lee, and Ilya Dragunov in a 3-way Intercontinental qualifier.
Mhm.
And that ended up playing out a lot like we kind
Yeah.
of thought it would. Like I was hopeful, hey, maybe now we'll see Dom, do something because him and Dragon Lee actually had a really great match
Yeah, they
back in the
did.
day. But instead they more or less like like Dragunov and Lee pretty much toss Mysterio out of the ring so that they can actually wrestle. And then Dom isn't really a factor until Carlito comes out to try and help, which led to Damian Priest coming out and chasing Carlito and Dom out of the arena, which pretty much left it as a match between Dragon Lee and
Yeah.
Ilya
And it
Dragunov.
was good. It was good. But I mean,
It was mostly good. It was mostly good. And here's a sad truth. For guys like man, good luck remembering them. The two guys that are part of the LWO.
JD, Carlito. Oh, LWO. He
Nope,
said LW.
the
Oh my
the
god.
henchman guys that were initially part of Legado del Fantasma. Unfortunately, I can't even remember their names, and that is telling because that's about where it should be. But like for them, and then you've got like we talk a lot about how lucha wrestlers aren't that well dealt with over in
Yeah.
WWE. And I would like to be like, yeah, AEW gives the Lucha guys a bit more. They've got contracts, they've got crossover work with CMLL and AAA, and their luchadors tend to be like more top card, whereas they're middle bottom, if you're lucky, with the exception of Rey Mysterio, right? He's a one off. But all of the other luchadors in the WWE are mid to low card at best
Yeah.
ever. And it's not a reflection of maybe what they can do, or is it? Because the point I'm trying to get to is that when they do get a little bit of TV time, those two
Angel.
guys from Legado del
Angel and
Fantasma.
Angel
Now,
and Berto.
those are actually the guys that are with him now,
Legado?
and those dudes are pretty good. Yeah, I'm trying to think of the other two, like more henchman-y members of
From
original Legado del
LWO,
Fantasma.
Cruz del Toro and
Yeah.
Joaquin Wild.
Thank you. Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
nailed it.
Phew.
So when Cruz and Joaquin are given any little bit of TV time, like the last 3 times I've seen them in anything other than like, them being minions, like for the faction where they're actually having a match, they screw up.
Yeah.
Like they end up with botches. And that's particularly damaging when you're a luchador and you're supposed to be like extra acrobatic and super technical. So like when you screw up, it's exponentially like a bit worse because like you're supposed to be extra good at this or extra
Yeah.
acrobatic-y. And so the point that I took forever to get back to with regards to Ilya Dragunov and Dragon Lee is that Dragon Lee completely botched, or maybe Ilya did. I don't know who, but Dragon Lee tried to do his move where he catches a clothesline and then backflips over the clothesline into a powerbomb position for his big powerbomb, and that whole move fell apart. So now you've got a situation where we haven't seen a lot of Dragon Lee, and I feel like him being part of LWO is a good way to bury poor
Yeah.
Dragon Lee.
Yeah.
And he finally has a match, like a big match, because Ilya Dragunov is kind of top shelf. Like he is upper card guy. And he screws up his move, and basically they just fall to the ground and have to recover it. And I'm like, here's another instance of these poor luchadors that don't hardly ever get this marquee kind of time, and they screw it up when they do on television, and it just is going to feed back into that feedback loop of like, this is why you don't get marquee
Yeah.
kind of time. And it's like, but otherwise I agree. It was a pretty solid match between Dragon Lee and Ilya Dragunov, except for that. And that stood out like a sore thumb for me, that
Yeah.
botch. But Dragunov getting the pin was essentially what I figured would be the case. I mean, mad props to Dragon Lee. I've seen him wrestle. I saw him wrestle in AEW. I've seen him wrestle in WWE. I know he can be very good. But Ilya Dragunov is like on another level. And Dom Mysterio, they pretty much did what I thought they were going to do, which is make him a non-factor in that whole
Yeah.
match. Which is unfortunate because I think Dom could do more than that, but that's what they chose
Yeah.
to do with him. But that led to Ilya Dragunov going into the, I guess, finals. Is it?
Yeah.
Is it? Yeah, I guess it would be a final match. It's like a final four-way for the number one contender challenge. Whoever's going to go against Braun Breaker for his belt. And I mean, who in the universe doesn't think it's going to be Jey Uso? I mean, like, cool story, but it's going to be Jey
I'm hoping it's
Uso.
Jey Uso. Like I'm hoping that is Jey Uso.
Well, I tend to think that after Braun Breaker got in Jey Uso's face about it, like they more or less tipped the hand that who else could it be at this point? Because you've already pre-built heat between Jey Uso and Braun
You're not
Breaker
wrong,
for it.
but I'm just saying. I hope that that's the route they go. More
Yeah,
look, they've done Stranger Things.
they have. But I think, at least I hope that they're learning the lesson that it's better to be satisfying than
Yeah.
unpredictable. At this point, I think like like all of Jey Uso's fan base would freaking riot, and Rikishi would send like all the hate mail in the world and like just bury WWE on Twitter at this
Yeah.
point if his boy didn't get a push. Um and it's not like Jay doesn't deserve it. His in-ring work is excellent. He has carved himself a character that is outstanding. He gets one of, if not the biggest pops out of the audience in the entire
Mhm.
industry right now. So, it's not for lack of putting in the work. So Jey Uso absolutely deserves it. I'm not intimating that in the slightest that
Yeah.
he doesn't. I'm just saying that I think you sort of have telegraphed this being the only outcome to this fatal four-way at this point. So, but I'm sure they'll still give us a great match, and I'm cool with that.
Yeah.
So now that we've established that Dragunov is moving on in the three-way or in the qualifiers in the Intercontinental Tournament, that brings us to the next match of the evening, which was Damage Control versus the Unholy Union of Isla Dawn and uh,
Alba Fire. Mhm.
Alba for a women's tag number one contender match. And for this match, if you recall, the tag champs, Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill, came to sit ringside.
Yeah.
And honestly, it was a pretty okay match. I'm definitely I definitely have seen Io Sky become an absolute beast in the ring. Like she can
Yeah.
go. And for me, the jury was still out regarding like or is still out regarding like Kyrie Sane. And so it was a good match to watch. And I feel like physically this was a better matchup because it's not such a physical mismatch as like because Kyrie Sane is a very slight woman, like her and Dakota Kai and like Zelina Vega are all incredibly short and very very thin.
Yeah.
Um, so when you put them in the ring with some like a tag team like Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill, you have to ask the audience for a lot willing suspension of disbelief that Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill couldn't just like one arm, Kyrie Sane out of the
Yeah.
stadium. Um, so it was nice to see that they had put him with, Alba Fire and Isla Dawn, who are closer in physicality, like Io Sky and Isla Dawn, a closer match. And the very thin and also very slight Alba Fire is a better match physically for
Yeah.
Kyrie Sane. Like I could believe that they could do moves
Yep.
to each other and it would actually have an impact. And so a relatively good match going on, and then Sane flies out of the ring and hits Bianca Belair, but also goes relatively hard into the announce table and gets busted
Mhm.
open. By the end of the match, Kyrie Sane has a relatively uh, decent looking, like the beginnings of a shiner on her eye, and like is
Yeah.
bleeding. Um, but it sets the stage with like Jade Cargill like demolishing Kyrie Sane for the accidental flight for Alba Fire and Isla Dawn to basically double up against EO, and so Damage Control loses the match.
Yeah. Wah, wah, wah. It was the music that they played when they lost.
So, I mean, thoughts regarding Damage Control and or the Unholy Union or
Um,
any of that?
Alba Fire and uh God, what's her name? Dawn. Uh it's a problem there where I liked them more when they were kind of in NXT. Um like and I haven't really seen them defend when they had the belts. I didn't really see them defend those belts often. I think they had a couple of matches uh in AEW, I'm not AEW, but in NXT, or they had a few like WWE Dark or some business. I'm not sure, but they did some lots of matches off camera that I didn't see. So I don't really have much of an opinion on them except they got the belts from Jay Cargill and Bianca by not pinning either one of them, which made perfect sense to me. So the match that they ended up having with Jay Cargill and Bianca was kind of like, well, yeah, of course. When it finally happened, so them getting in the ring with Kyrie and Io, like you said, it felt like more of a match uh in size. So I feel like they did a pretty good job in the ring. I feel like Damage Control did a pretty good job. Like you said, EO is not EO, but the Pirate Princess. She's growing on me. I've always liked her look. I've always liked her aesthetic. I always thought she looked really cool, but I also thought that she was kind of in the ring. Um, but she's growing on me. She delivered. She brought it Monday. Uh, yeah, looks good.
I agree. I feel like I've seen some real growth in terms of like with Io Sky, and Kyrie Sane is impressing me more. The more I get to see her wrestle, she's doing better. Although uh, that bump at the end where she
Yeah.
hit the table, maybe be a little more
Mhm.
careful. Um, but I don't know. I hate to say it, but I'm relatively like, as far as the storyline goes, I'm relatively ambivalent about either Damage Control or the Unholy Union versus Jade and
Yeah.
Bianca, because outside of shenanigans, I really have a hard time seeing that as a matchup that either of those teams stand a real chance of winning if it's just an actual straight
Yeah.
wrestling
I
match.
agree.
Like, Bianca and Jade are just too much of a force to be reckoned with, and I think they're gonna have a real difficult time trying to book that because, I mean, we've already seen them play the hand a couple of times of like, well, stick them in a triple threat match so that, neither one of them has to be the
Yeah.
one pinned. And it's like, is that, I mean, where do you go from there? You've already done it like kind of exhaustively twice now. Um, so you've got kind of a problem with Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair being quite so dominant of a tag team,
Yeah.
in that it really is difficult for my willing suspension of disbelief that these other teams of much like significantly smaller women, it's like heavyweights versus like featherweights. It's just really difficult for me to believe that they're going to do anything or could do anything outside of, some sort of shenanigans or cheating, or like, hit Jade Cargill with like 15 chairs to get the
Yeah.
win kind of a thing. Um, Kind of the same way that we had to make it believable that Becky Lynch stood a chance against
Nia Jax, yeah.
Nia Jax, was by having her have a match in something like a street fight where Becky Lynch could hit her with everything, including the kitchen sink, because it's just the only way that that becomes a believable match. So I'm not overly interested in watching the Unholy Union come back after Jade and Bianca, because it's more or less, in my mind, it's more or less a fluke that they won it in the first place, like a fluke of being in a triple threat match where they didn't even need to pin the champs. Um, and I don't feel too differently that Damage Control would do much else than that either.
Yeah.
It's it's unfortunate, but that's just the way it looks to me. It's like there's just no believable, and if it's just going to be constantly shenanigans like that, it's going to play itself. It's already kind of played out. So like, where do you go with
Yeah.
that? So moving on from that match, we are brought to Gunther coming out and insulting the fans immediately and talking about his legacy. That long legacy of him being the world champion for the last
Yeah.
5 minutes. Um, And then Sami Zayn comes to throw his name in the hat. He doesn't want to be outdone by CM Punk. But, he validly points out that he was the one that ended Gunter's streak and one of the only guys since he's been on the main roster. Maybe actually, I think he is the only guy on the main roster that was able to secure a pin on Gunter.
Yep.
So there's that. But I don't know. How do you feel about that? I'm not sure how I feel about Zayn coming after Gunter. I'm not sure if I feel like that's the match that everybody, I mean, I get that Zayn is insanely popular, but I'm not really feeling this particular matchup myself.
Um, in all honesty, like real talk, I don't see the point in this. Sammy does not need another belt. I look, he doesn't need another belt run so soon. Like he just like we just did this. I feel like he won April 6th of this year. He had it for 119 days. Like, okay, cool.
I I tend to speculate because, I mean, It was pointed out by somebody, I can't remember who. Maybe Gunter
Oh no,
did.
he just won the heavyweight.
Um,
Uh, Gunther has the heavyweight belt right now, right? And
right, and this was the IC belt that him and
and
Zayn were
you're
going
right,
back
right.
and
So
forth over
he
before.
had the IC belt in June of like 22, Gunther, and then
Yeah,
Sammy won it in April, and then Braun won it
yeah,
from Sammy in August.
like in short order.
Yeah,
And this almost feels like, to me, this feels like with Sami Zayn doing like comedy shows and all this other stuff. He's looking. You can't help but think he's looking towards a life outside of the
yeah.
wrestling ring. And it's like, so are we just trying to stick feathers in Sammy's cap before he
Oh,
goes?
maybe, but when I think of heavyweight champions, I think of like, well, Drew, Damien, the guys that have had the belt recently, Seth. Um, like I could see them being heavyweights. Seth kinda, but I mean he throws some power moves. But I just can't see when I think of heavyweight, I don't think Sammy. I don't think Sami Zayn.
Well, part of the problem is that they still call it the heavyweight
Yeah,
championship, but like, when was the last time WWE actually enforced anything remotely resembling a weight class? What, 205 Live a couple years
yeah,
ago, maybe? Um, so they call it the heavyweight championship, but like, it's not weight class based. It's
yeah,
more
yeah. I
like,
know. It's just my head. I can't.
are you a badass enough? No, I agree with where you're coming from though. Like, if I think heavyweight champion and you stick it on like Rey Mysterio, I'm like, yeah, but he's not a
Yeah,
heavyweight. He's not a heavyweight. Why are we calling it the
right.
heavyweight
Like I
championship?
would have Sammy. Honestly, if Sammy was gonna go after a belt, which I don't. Again, I don't think my man needs a new belt right now. There are plenty of people. Like I want Drew to have a belt again. They gave him a belt for 2 seconds. 2 seconds, man. Like, come on. But like if Sammy wants to go after a belt, and I know weight classes don't freaking matter anymore, I know, but I would go after the United States Championship. I'd go after LA Knight.
Well,
I know he
the
can't
reason I
because I think
suggest that
he's
maybe it's,
Friday, isn't he?
yeah, the
Yeah,
show split that is enforced when they want
yeah,
it to.
yeah, yeah,
Um, because technically speaking, Randy Orton is a SmackDown superstar, but as needed, he was able to challenge Gunter for the heavyweight
yeah.
championship. Now they did go on to add a few extra lines about, like, if that's the case, then I'll make the switch over to Raw. So they're trying to, at least in the kayfabe, make it look like the show rosters matter.
Mhm.
But it's so nebulously enforced or discarded as needed that it's whatever. It would be like if somehow they tried to, like, what we were just talking about, the heavyweight belt, and somehow they were like, "Well, Zayn can't challenge for it. He doesn't weigh enough." And it's like, when has that ever been an issue until right now?
Yeah.
You know? Um, and it's yeah. So that's a whole nother, like, how they'll ditch the appearance that this is a sport with rules whenever they need to. Um, but I don't know. I'm just is the whole point to try and put a feather in Sammy's cap before he retires?
Maybe.
Or do they legitimately think that there's some heat here between Zayn and Gunter? Because I'm not really feeling it,
Yeah.
like, because Gunter does a really good job of, like, talking mad shit about his opponents until he's done with them. Like, until it's like it's all exclusively the crap talk of, like, UFC fighters and boxers that goes away immediately after the match is over. Um, kind of the same way Gunter shook hands with Randy Orton at the end of their match, despite all of the shit talk that took place leading
Yeah.
up to it. So I don't really feel like there's any continued heat between Gunter and Zayn. Like, I felt like they settled their IC issue quite nicely. So when Zayn came out with regards to Gunter, I was like, "Why are you bringing up old shit?" Like,
Yeah.
what is? it just doesn't have any heat for me. Maybe they'll build it somehow, but it's just as a non CM Punk fan, I'm more intrigued by CM Punk and Gunter than I am Zayn and Gunter at this
Yeah.
point. Like it just feels forced to me, I
I
guess is what I'm
agree.
trying to
Yep.
say.
And I mean, I honestly think what's gonna happen is Gunther's gonna win because I mean, he's gonna win. Like Sammy has one up on him, and I don't think Sammy's gonna win this belt. I'm not sure why
No,
they
and
put
I
heat
don't think it
there. I
would
don't know.
do anything
Mm-mm.
for it. I don't what because Sammy worked so hard to become the IC champion that Gunter was the IC champion for like 2 years, and then Sammy lost it in like two feuds. So it's like, what would this do? What would this
Excuse
accomplish?
me.
So I don't know. Me personally, I'm not sold on that angle. That could change if they manage to find a way to realistically build some heat for it and put in the proper storytelling. But for right now, it felt incredibly forced. Like, let's just have challengers come out of the woodwork,
Yeah.
you know? Um, so moving on from that, we are brought to Braun Strowman versus Sheamus versus Ludwig Kaiser in the IC number one contenders match. And it was originally supposed to be Big Bronson Reed, but he's not medically cleared. So Braun Strowman asks to be put in and is inserted
Yeah.
into the match. And kind of one of the things that was mentioned before we got that match was like, is Butch, aka Pete Dunne, gonna, interfere here? And sure enough,
Yeah.
he did. Um, which pretty much leaves us with Kaiser versus Strowman, and that went exactly how you would predict. I mean, Kaiser can catch you with a few quick moves, but Strowman just needs to hit you once or twice and you're
Yeah.
done. And I'm glad that it's done that way. Like, because what else would have been believable? Like, oh, Kaiser kicked out. What? No, Kaiser is flat. Kaiser, who is already almost two dimensional, is now for sure two dimensional. Come
Yeah.
on.
No, it happened exactly as I expected it to. Honestly, had there not been an interruption, I was giving it to Sheamus. Because I feel like Sheamus could have taken on an injured Strowman. Um,
He
and
could. And Sheamus would have had it if Pete Dunne
but
hadn't
then
interfered. Remember, because he
right,
got
yeah,
the
that's what
Brogue
I'm saying.
kickoff.
Had there not been any interruption, Sheamus I think would have won it. But I'm real tired of them doing that angle with Sheamus. For some reason, this dude can't get a break. Every time he goes in for something like for a belt or for like a the opportunity to go for a belt, somebody intervenes or somebody interferes with this fucking shit, and he's back to square one. And I don't know why that's happening, but I would like a belt on Sheamus. That right there. Instead of Sammy going after the belt, going after the World Heavyweight Championship, I would love for Sheamus to do it. That would be awesome.
Yeah, especially given that Sheamus has this wonderful history that goes back to like two clashes of the castle ago, where him and
A
Gunter put on
banger.
just a brutal match.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that would be cool. I just don't know if that's the light WWE sees Sheamus in. It's almost like they've got him set to sunset.
Yeah.
Like all you're here to do now is put over our other talent.
Yeah,
Um,
maybe.
Even though you're incredibly popular with the fans, like Sheamus, I think is definitely a candidate. I mean, unless he's happy with that being, how he's depicted until his contract runs out, I would definitely think because WWE, like, and we've mentioned this talking with each other in the past, like, once a wrestler is like over 40, they're like, you're retirement material now, unless you're like Roman Reigns or somebody. A lot of them just get stuck in a time to put over our younger, fresher, we can build a future with these guys
Yeah.
talent. And that would make Sheamus a wonderful candidate to try his luck going to
Yeah.
AEW. if he's displeased with that. I mean, he's already got Castagnoli over there. It'd be fairly easy for Sheamus to come in there and just become a dominating force on the AEW roster.
Yeah. And yeah, and I think that might be where they're going with it. Sheamus is in his mid 40s now, like 45, 46. Um, and if that's true, then that means that WWE is putting him on sunset mode. Um,
Yeah. I feel that's the same situation with, say, like AJ Styles. Even though he's in the best shape he's ever been in his
yeah.
freaking life, they're like, yeah, but you're old, you know.
Yep.
um, and it's just a weird place, because like they don't want you to skyrocket to being too popular because then you'll leave and take all that clout with you, like either to Hollywood or AEW. But once you're a little bit older, they're like, well, we need to promote talent that we can, invest in for a long time, who will be able to carry the show for a long time. So it's like you got your Austin Theories and your Grayson Wallers, who are basically just going to be made jobbers
Yeah.
for a long time because we can't let you get too popular too quick. And then there's this tiny window, maybe, you know, where you're not too old, but you've been here long enough that we can let you get hot now, and then now we're gonna sunset you again. So it's like the window where you get to be the guy on top is very small,
Yeah.
it seems. But at any rate, I digress. Moving on from Strowman basically winning by pinning Ludwig Kaiser puts him in the fatal four way for the number one contenders match. And I have a few predictions about that one. Like, obviously, as stated earlier, I think Jey Uso
Hmm.
wins. Like, I think that's a foregone conclusion. Um, I think Braun Strowman is going to make it a compelling match because he's just like that wild card of like, I'm so powerful that all I got to do is hit you with the one right move and you're
Yeah.
over. Um, but I absolutely see, since Pete Dunne is in that match, I absolutely see Sheamus returning the favor.
Hmm.
And so Pete Dunne at some point in the match will be a non-factor because he will get obliterated by
Yep. I
Sheamus.
see it. I see that.
And as is the case with like triple threat match, the fatal four-way match will be no
Hmm.
DQ. So Sheamus will be able to just kick Pete Dunne's face completely off. Um, Who else? Ilya Dragunov is in that match. So I think it's going to be Braun Strowman, Sheamus, Ilya Dragunov, and Pete Dunne. No, that can't be right. Uh, Sheamus is not in that match. Sorry, I shouldn't have said that. Braun Strowman, Pete Dunne, Ilya Dragunov, and
Yeah.
Jey
Hmm.
Uso, right? So Pete Dunne's going to get annihilated, which is going to basically leave us with Braun Strowman and Ilya Dragunov and Jey Uso. And if they continue to play up on the fact that Braun Strowman is hurt, then something could happen that exacerbates his existing injury and takes him out of the picture. So essentially, we end up with Jey Uso versus Ilya Dragunov.
Yeah.
And I imagine they would give us a banger of a match, but in the end, Jey Uso, catches him with like a spear, and it's done. And then you have spear versus spear, Braun Breaker versus Jey Uso. So I kind of see that being how that's going to end up playing out.
I'd be here for it. Eh, Yeah.
It'd be a great match, right? Like make no mistake, just because I can predict it doesn't mean it won't be
No, 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 not
amazing.
at all.
Again, it's better to be satisfying than unpredictable for
Yep.
unpredictable's sake. Um And I think
Hmm.
those will all be satisfying things. Like when Sheamus kicks Pete Dunne's face completely to the back side of his head, we're all gonna be like, "God
Yeah.
dang right," because we're tired of your stupid ass coming out and hitting Sheamus
We'll
with a
all breathe a
shillelagh.
sigh of relief.
Um, you little
Screw
rat.
you, Butch.
um, so I think there's gonna be a great match there set up for that fatal four way. And that brings us to the final match of Raw, which was Damian Priest and Jey Uso as a tag team versus Finn Balor and JD
Hmm.
McDonough. And boy, howdy, let me tell you, and you, I know you'll agree because you felt exactly the same way. It gave both of us life to see Damian Priest and Jey Uso in a tag match
Yes.
together.
Yeah, it was great. I wish that they had cut some sort of like promo of Rhea asking Jay, because I would have loved to have seen that
Yeah.
interaction. Uh,
Like some sort of, yeah, I'll do that, Rhea, but you're gonna have to go with me to the Waffle
yes,
House.
there should have been a scene where they were just sitting at Waffle House eating something. Um,
Quick, like mid show Waffle
yes,
House
yes.
visit.
I thoroughly enjoyed the promo that Braun Breaker and Jey Uso cut before the match, when Jay was talking and Braun Breaker interrupted. Um, I liked that. It
Yeah.
looked real
Yep.
good. My favorite response from Jay was, "Thanks for the advice, Ricky." I was like, "Oh shit!" Mic drop.
Don't worry about
I
mommy. I
got
got
that. Don't
that.
worry about that. I'm like, "Oh snap! Go ahead on, Jay, with the pinky out." Um,
Yeah, I'd like to give Jey Uso a lot of props for the way he's grown into being like a complete pro wrestler. Um, because he went from fun-loving Jay, like chill and yeet, to like menacing Jay in a
mhm.
heartbeat. And he stood up straighter because you know how he kind of gets that little coyote
Little
action where he's kind of hunched over and he's rubbing his hands
the sneaky.
together. He looks like he's salivating over a meal
I
he's
call that
about
the
to eat.
sneaky hyena.
The sneaky hyena Jey Uso, yeah. And then he immediately straightened up, and he was like, "Oh, okay, here's menacing Jey Uso."
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And the match is good. Damien
Uh,
and Jay look good together. I don't know how long it's gonna last, because we got the bloodline drama simmering and percolating, and Jimmy should be back soon, and more drama should be popping off there. So I don't know how long uh Jay Jay being outside of the bloodline is gonna be, or how long him being outside of a tag team is gonna be. But it was nice to see him do something with someone else outside of the bloodline, with outside of his family, and not Cody Rhodes. Just him and Damien looked good together, and it was real
they
smart. It
did,
was real smart to put them
and
together too, because I mean, seriously, their situations are very similar.
yeah, and I mean, just total fan service, right? Like, I mean, who wasn't here for it? Who wasn't here for it at the end of the match when Rhea got into the ring, bouncing on one leg, doing the yeets and all that, and dancing to Jey
Everybody
Uso's
was here
music?
for the yeet.
Ah, it was absolutely like they knew, this is gonna get mad
Hi,
pop.
come for the
Um,
wrestling, stay for the yeet.
Stay for the
Yeah,
yeet, yeah. And the match itself
yeah,
was
it
nice.
was
It was
fun.
solid. I mean, it's always you have four really good performers in that ring. Damian Priest is absolutely amazing. Jey Uso is amazing, and Balor and JD McDonough actually looked incredibly good against them. So it was just a good, solid bit of wrestling that ended, in a really huge, like crowd pleasing pop moment. And so I don't really have anything more than that to say. It was just
Yeah,
good. I mean, that was
it was
just
good. Yeah.
good. Um, yeah. Oh, and we got. Uh, I know I personally get frustrated with how often Priest will tease an edge, and then it gets like yeah, shimmy out, or it's otherwise
Hmm.
interrupted. And at first, I was like, "No, we're gonna get like you're edging the edge," is basically
Yeah.
what's happening here. And it because he was doing it to Finn Balor, and Finn Balor slips out, but it immediately turns to JD McDonough, the guy who is apparently been slated to take every bump that anyone has to
He is
give.
the everyman finisher. Okay.
He is like, I will take all of
Wait,
the bumps, every
how
bump
many
you have.
finishers? Yes.
Yes. So I was like, immediately, I was like, no, we're not going to get the, outsider edge or the razor's edge. And then they switched it to JD, and I'm like, oh, and then he did it, and it looked really, really good. And I'm like, yeah.
Oh.
So I was so pleased that he was actually able to pull that off. Not that I have anything against the choke slam. That's a wonderful
Yeah.
move too, but I
Yeah.
like them both. And the one that gets spoiled seemingly the most often, or maybe that's just bias on my part, but he doesn't go for it as often as South of Heaven either. So it seems like it has a higher ratio of it getting spoiled to even
Yeah.
attempted. So it was nice to see that happen. And then, of course, you've got Jey Uso coming off the rope with the Uso splash, and it, then it ends as it was intended, as it should have.
Yep. And it was a gird.
It was a gird. Also, the whole sequence where Liv Morgan came out there and looked like she was going to interfere in the match, and it's like, well, who can help? Rhea Ripley's injured. Well, then her music hits and she starts hobbling down there with the little crutch. Only and Liv is all like, oh snap! Now I can talk all kinds of mad crap to Rhea because she can't do nothing about it. And Rhea's like, psych, and starts beating the crap out of her with the
Psych,
crutch.
and then Liv's like,
And I mean, she messed that crutch up.
yep.
You remember that? She messed it up. She swung it, and I think she didn't hit Liv with that swing, or Liv would probably be
Yeah.
in the hospital, but she hit it on the ring post or something and like snapped that crutch in half. So it was good. The close to Raw was
Yeah, I agree.
good. So overall, and I don't know, it's not really an official thing, but like if you were rating it like you rate school, like A, B, C, D, and then we'll say F. What would you give Monday Night Raw?
I'd give it a solid B plus.
Yeah, a B plus. Oh, okay. Well, I was just gonna give it an A. I felt like the whole show was pretty solid.
It was a solid show. Some of the matches, there were some weak spots, if you will. But they were still good. Like weak but good. All right. Like the match with Pure Fusion Collective and oh gosh, who were they going against? Damage Control, was it? Or was it?
No. Pure Fusion Collective went against. Where did they go? Oh, they weren't actually in a match. Pure Fusion Collective was involved in a Zelina Vega Shayna Baszler match.
The Shayna Baszler match and Zelina Vega. Thank you. That match, yeah. I mean, I would give that match a C, and like that would bring down the overall grade from an A as far as I'm concerned. That match did. So I would give it like a B plus.
I could see that. And I wouldn't necessarily like, because I don't think Zelina and Shayna performed poorly. I think my issue is with my overall feel about what's happening with the women of Pure Fusion Collective. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't that they gave a bad match. It's that the people that are involved and my feeling about how these women could be so much better than they are. That's about the performers themselves. So like they could have gone in there and gave like a 6-star match, and I'd still be like, meh.
Yeah.
Because of how we feel about the participants and the fact that like I don't like this heat between Zelina Vega and Lyra Valkyria and PFC doesn't really do much for me either. But I'm trying not to ding them because of who's in the match, but more like how
Yeah.
was it? That's my thought process. I'm not trying to tell you how to do your thing. Because like CM Punk's section, I'm not taking any points off of, and I don't like CM Punk, but it wouldn't be fair for me to ding them for utilizing CM Punk just because I don't like CM Punk.
Yeah, no, that's my
Um,
ding isn't for that. My ding is because the match was okay. It was just an okay match.
That's fair. I would probably, in retrospect, because we ended talking about the super high note that was so good, and I'm torn, right? Because there was a fairly significant botch between Ilya Dragunov and
Mhm.
Dragon Lee, and I'm tempted to take points off
Yeah, I
for
hadn't
that.
even gotten
But
to that yet.
if I'm gonna take points off for that, then should I add points for the fact that the way they closed was about as high of a high spot as you could give the
I
evening?
mean,
Um, so it's tough to say because they ended so strong that I think it almost papers over some of the weak spots for me.
maybe, but I'm
So I
I'm
don't.
going I'm going down the list thinking of every match individually and giving them a score. And the night
And then kinda
yeah, the
tallying it
night
up.
ended on an A plus night. That A plus match. That was great. The interaction, the whole situation between Rhea, Liv, and Damien. It was all good. It was all good. So yeah, that ended on a high note. I would give that an A plus. But the match, the Dragon Lee and the Dragon Lee match, I the flub, I would give that match a C too. Like those, so we already have two matches that were
Yeah.
C's. So I couldn't give
So that makes sense how you would
right.
get to a B or a B plus. I
So
feel you on
B.
that. I feel you on that. I was going more with my overall feel, like, you know how some nights we'll watch Raw or any of these shows like Dynamite or something, and, like, there's peaks and valleys, right? Like, there's certain spots that are amazing, commingled with spots that are, either meh or
Yeah.
bad, and it's like, for me, I'm like, overall, do I think the peaks were greater or lesser than the valleys? And for me, thinking on Raw, I feel like the peaks were greater than the
Mhm.
valleys. And so if I'm, maybe a rating system isn't that great, was it worth watching? Yes, absolutely. But I see where you're coming from, and yours is a much more like numerical measure, and I see how you got to B plus, and I think that's
Mhm.
fair. I think that's absolutely fair. I just know that I ended the night thinking Raw was a
Mhm.
banger, like overall.
Yeah,
So
I walked away feeling the same way, but I can still grade the matches individually, and that's how I came up with what I did. A boop boop.
no,
Mhm.
I like it. No, that makes perfect sense. And you're not wrong. I mean, the match with Vega and Baszler was met at best, and that whole situation with like Vega and the PFC is met at best. Like I don't feel like there's a lot of heat there either. I feel like some of these are just like, well, we've got performers and we've got TV time, throw 'em in,
Yeah.
you know. Um, but maybe they'll build something off of that. I mean, we can hope, but with what we've got to this point, I agree. Similarly, I have absolutely no investment in Zayn and
Mm-mm.
Gunter at all. Um, and I'm not particularly hyped about the outcomes of Damage Control versus Unholy Union versus Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill because I just don't. It's not compelling to me to want to see Jade and Bianca wrestle Damage Control or the Unholy Union because as stated before, the willing suspension of disbelief that any of those women could actually beat Jade or Bianca without resorting to absolute
Yeah.
shenanigans is just not
Yep.
fair. Um, so maybe they can do more to build heat on some of that stuff. So I do agree with your sentiments that some of the more popular aspects and some of the higher spots are absolutely carrying some of the mess
Yeah.
spots. And Met is where I would put some of that, but the flub in the middle of the match that was supposedly Mysterio, Dragon Lee, and Ilya Dragunov, that really hurt for me personally. That really hurt it, because it stood out like a sore thumb. Because I'm like, yeah, Dragon Lee's finally getting some time and kind of a marquee level appearance, and he's not just getting buried by LWO, and then he buried
Yeah.
himself by flubbing
Yeah.
that spot. And it's the same feeling I had with like Del Toro and Wild, right? Like these guys are finally getting a chance to show them their stuff. And Wild does have that one really cool move where like everybody pulls the middle rope while he's standing on it, so he ends up shooting like way far away in
Mhm.
up the aisle. And if that's all I had to go on, I'd be like, yeah, these guys are pretty good, but like they'll screw up their stuff. So those kinds of flubs actually ding it harder for me than
Yeah.
nearly anything else. And I know accidents happen, but it seems like if you're the guy who barely ever gets any TV time, and the one time you do get some TV time, you screw it up, and that's how you end up not getting any more
Yeah.
TV time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's rough. So yeah, I think your B plus is more than fair. It might even be a little more fair now that I go back and analyze it with a more critical eye. So yeah, I'll go with a B plus.
Nice.
I agree.
Conform.
Conform, agree with me, or be wrong. So with that said, I think we should probably go ahead and call it a
Mhm.
podcast. We've been recording now for over an hour, and so I'm just gonna go ahead and hit the outro. So for everyone who's been listening, thanks for tuning into this episode of Top Tier Wrestling. We hope you enjoyed our deep dive into the latest AEW and WWE news and shows. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an episode, and give us a thumbs up, or otherwise let us know if you liked it. If you didn't like it, you can let us know that too. Follow us on social media for more wrestling update, behind the scenes content, and to join the conversation. Until next time, keep cheering for your favorite wrestlers, and remember, wrestling is always better when it's top tier. See you in the ring.